It was 1982, and Michael Jordan took and scored the game-winning shot in the NCAA championship game. And looking back, he said that was the moment that awoke an unquenchable thirst to win at all costs. And that's what he did. We were all stuck in our rooms in 2020 watching the same documentary. You don't need me to tell you the story of Michael Jordan's life. But here's the thing. Michael Jordan or someone like him was probably your role model on a conscious or unconscious level as a child. But the Mozarts and Michael Jordans of the world are child prodigies, or at some point in MJ's case decided that this is what they're going to do. They're going to win at all costs. They had an unshakable drive. They bounced back from difficulty and adversity without even questioning it generally because their purpose was so strong. And of course, it's a great mythology and we buy into it, but we wonder, why am I not like that? Because if we're aimless, adrift, lacking purpose, maybe it just means we're not that person. Maybe if MJ is on this side of the binary, we're on the other. We're just not that guy, pal, or that gal. And maybe you've even seen flashes of your own greatness and potential and gifts, which makes it all the more frustrating when you can't seem to activate them consistently, which weirdly can lead to feelings of shame or confusion, or like, maybe I just don't want this bad enough, because that narrative tells you the winners are the ones who just want it more. But those prodigies are anomalies, and their upsides are celebrated, and their downsides are downplayed. And that way of being often signals a cautionary tale as much as it does a hero's journey. And so the truth is, as opposed to being on the opposite side of the spectrum of someone like MJ, most of us are somewhere in the middle. We have some choice, some will, some autonomy. We might not be driven by an unshakable fire and thirst to win, but we have some choice that we might not always recognize or admit to ourselves. So I'd invite you to think about, have you had a moment where you were trying to form a new habit and you fell off the wagon? Maybe even for a long time, but you eventually got back on. Have you had a moment where you could have gone the instant gratification route, but you pulled back and said, no, I'm actually going to do what's better for me in the big picture right now? Have you had a moment where you could have just looked at someone the same way you always do, just kind of through the same jaded eyes or expectations, but you pulled back and said, you know what, I'm going to see them through fresh eyes. I'm going to be grateful for them. I'm going to be present with them. And so likewise, if you're in a hard moment in your life and you're wallowing in self-pity, or you feel purposeless or adrift or aimless, that's okay, because you don't have to be MJ. You don't have to be sure of yourself. You can just make a choice to tell a new or empowering story, and choose it over and over until you start to feel it. You don't have to play a choose your own adventure game where all the choices are already chosen for you because greatness was thrust upon you and it was inevitable. You can wake up and actually choose who you want to be. You have some sense of autonomy. You don't know what's going to happen in that choose your own adventure game, but you have the choice. You have the empowerment. You're somewhere in the middle of the spectrum where things get interesting. And there's a beauty in that. There's a presence in that. There's a potential in that. If you're a Natasha Bedingfielder, you might say there's something unwritten about that. Write your own story by making choices, realizing that you might be pulled to negativity or doubt or confusion or getting off track. That just means you're human. But make the choice that you choose to make anyway, and that will stack up over time. That will lead to its own beautiful journey in its own way, even if it's imperfect and circuitous. Don't try to figure everything out at once. Just focus on the moment in front of you and start choosing.